Hey team, how are we? Welcome back to another week. Now, today we are talking about something that quite often scares people. They don't realize how beneficial this topic will be for their small business today. Now, today we are talking about chatbots. If you haven't heard of them, make sure you tune in today. Chatbots are in some way to many people is foreign, but it is taking over the internet in the sense of making your life easy as a business owner. It can help you save money and time. Now, before we introduce our guest today, I just want to do a quick shout out. Now, if you are watching, you know we come live every Thursday at 1:30. You can follow us on Facebook or on YouTube. But hey, if you are watching and you have a question, don't be afraid. Pop a question in and we can see if we'll answer it with our specialist on the day. Now, today we have Letitia from Yonder, and I'm really excited to talk about this topic because I have been looking at chatbots for a couple of years now, and I am super interested to see what Letitia has to say to us. So please welcome Letitia to the floor. Hey, Letitia, how are you?
Good. Hey, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Hey, look, Letitia, tell us a little bit about what you do because I'm curious.
Okay, so I'm the head of sales at a company called Yonder HQ, and basically we call ourselves a marketing automation platform, and we have a bunch of tools that are available for businesses, small to large businesses. Basically, it's anyone that is wanting to look at for marketing automation. So our features include things that will boost sales or gather more customer feedback or manage and analyze your feedback, and as you've mentioned, we do the chatbots, which is the time saving and the boosting sales kind of benefits rolled into one.
Cool. Now, today we are going to be chatting a little bit about what Yonder does and how it can help small businesses essentially. So
Yep.
I would love to just get started. So do you want to hit us up? And I've got our questions here in case we forget them ourselves.
Okay.
I've got our questions here. So I'm just going to pop the first question on the screen, and here we go. Let's rock and roll. So, how do chatbots meet customer expectations in today's society? This is a good one.
It is a real good one, and I get asked this all the time. It's like, why do I need one now? And I always love using, and I always start by saying to people, okay, how do you watch TV these days? And they'll look at me and they'll be like, are you watching on live TV or are you watching Netflix or Disney or Neon or any of those on-demand channels? And they'll be like, oh, yeah, I watch all those. I don't watch normal. Like, what's normal TV these days? And then I'll be like, so how do you listen to music? Are you listening? Have you got a Spotify account? And they're like, yeah, of course we do. Like, everyone's got a Spotify account. And I'm like, okay, so they're a really good example of how they're on demand, right? Everyone is expecting to be able to just go on and get what you want then and there. So that's an expectation that we've just now it's just something that we now expect as customers when we watch TV or listen to music. And if you think of Uber's the same with taxis now, where you kind of don't expect to have to ring up and like wait for a long time for a taxi, but you've got Uber. So it's sort of like, those customer expectations of immediacy and being then and there is exactly what the chatbots basically do. So it's just an extension of meeting people's expectations of that being available then and there 24/7.
And I think one of the things that we sometimes don't actually realize nowadays is sometimes we're actually talking to a chatbot, but we think we're talking to a real person because it's just so realistic now, isn't it?
Yeah. Like, so a few years ago, I would say the technology's advanced huge amount in the last 5 years. So if you talk to people, say 8 years ago, they'd be like, oh, they're so clunky, they're horrible, bad experience. Whereas nowadays, a lot of people, and we know this for a fact because we see them like engage as if it's a real person. So they say, thank you. They say, oh, that was great. Thanks for your help. And they have no idea that they've been discussing it with a chatbot versus a normal person, or a human at the other end. So that's sort of the development of what they've made able to do and managed to achieve in the last few.
I remember when we used to have a travel agency as part of our business before COVID hit, and my number one pet hate was the chatbot that Jetstar would have. It used to drive me insane because you knew it was a chatbot. It actually would blatantly say, because I'd have a character and say, "Hey, you're speaking to Mr. Jetstar," and you know
Yep.
it's not a real person. But now there's some that I know that it's just so authentic and it's realistic that you feel like you're actually speaking to someone.
And that's just the advantage of, so the ones that were previously, and I think that's one of the other questions we go into, is that not all chatbots are made the same, but it's that real AI, the advancement of AI basically, and the access of it now to the small businesses that they just didn't have access to a couple of years ago because it just was too expensive and it was just too really difficult to do. Whereas these days it's a lot more accessible and the technology is caught up. So yeah, it just makes it a lot more of a nicer experience for the users to go through.
Oh,
But
definitely.
you said something about some of them introduce themselves as chatbots and some of them don't. So we still have this discussion with our clients nowadays, saying some of them will want to say, "Oh, yeah, we definitely want to explain that we're a chatbot to start with. We're here to help," and then others just want to start answering questions and not really disclose it's a chatbot, and then it's up to the person to figure it out. So yeah, but lots of businesses are different with their comfort level on that stage.
Now, I want to just say one thing because I have spent many a time on chat sections of all different websites, and one thing that I have discovered, so as chatbots have evolved, they've gotten better and better, and to the point that we don't even realize that we're talking to a machine, is that sometimes they're actually better than a human being.
So yeah, we've had a few businesses actually that have contacted us because they were having trouble with their customer service teams. So sometimes it's because, so there's an array of reasons why, but sometimes their customer service teams aren't trained in sales, and if they're wanting a salesperson to be answering the chat, that's not what they're trained in, and so they're actually losing sales because of it. Others, it's just because they can't type fast, or they just aren't very good at articulating what they need to say via chat, because when you talk through a chat system, it's a little bit different than when you're talking on the phone. And it's like, so they just, again, it's people's ability and is sort of sometimes a reason why. But but we've heard lots of these. Sometimes it's because their staff are sick quite often, and so they can't man them when they've got staff that aren't available, or they don't want to pay staff out of hours to answer them, because like 40% of our chats that we see come through the system, no matter what, is usually out of hours, like out of work hours. So,
wow.
Yeah, so that's a lot of chats that are coming that people could potentially gather leads and answer questions that aren't in business hours. And so paying someone to answer phones and do that sort of stuff outside of hours can cost a business quite substantially.
Wow, that's really interesting. And I mean, I've worked with various businesses, and usually most of the businesses where we've had some form of messaging option for people, we've been large businesses, and we've also had staff manning it. And I guess I just want to ask, at what point should a small business think about a chatbot?
So we work with a little one that is just a one-man person, but he's just really busy. And so if they're busy and they have traffic to their website, then they know that they're already getting chats coming through. Then that's the time that they need to start automating, because all of a sudden you can free up time, but you can also either gather that lead and be able to answer some of the frequently, those commonly asked questions straight away, and then you just provide an immediate service that, as we're just talking about expectations, it's just meeting expectations now versus someone having to ring back. So nowadays, if I have to ring someone, if they don't answer the phone, I tend to ring the next business in line. I don't tend to go back to that person because you're just impatient to get the job done.
Yeah, because we want everything now, don't we? We're so impatient as a society, aren't we?
We are. It's really worrying, actually. I keep looking at my children thinking, man, imagine what you guys are going to be like when you're my age, because already, my generation is very much on demand, but their one is like uber on demand. So
yeah, definitely. And look, the one thing, and I really, knowing what questions we've got next, but I really like this conversation because having worked with businesses where we actually manned a messaging platform, and that's the old-fashioned way, right? So let's just talk about that for a second. That old-fashioned way of keeping connected. Now, we are now still talking to operators or businesses where we say, look, if you're not using Messenger, you're missing out, because people just want that, we talk about that urgency. They want to be able to just connect with you and get an answer straight away before they move on to the next thing. But we've seen great success in conversion just having that point of contact, because you've been able to help that person through that process. I'm imagining with a chatbot, you have that I guess that stream or that rhythm or that string of answers that kind of follow as people are working their way through a process, and we'll probably see, no doubt, the same kind of conversion than if it was human or not.
Yep, it does depend on the business and what the reason is for your chatbot. So are you gathering leads, or are you trying to convert them for sales, or are you just trying to take off pressure off your customer service team? That kind of changes, the flow or the journey that you take people on. But it's still very much is a and it doesn't. And chatbots are never going to answer. You've got to be realistic. They're never going to answer 100% of those questions that come through. But if you can think about it, what we describe it as is the tip of an iceberg. So like so up to 3% of your website visitors, if they talk to you, then there's a huge percentage of website visitors that may be thinking the same thing or like wanting to know the same information, but just aren't using the chat. And so it's just that opportunity to really, like, we see it as data gathering or understanding your customer better as well. So like you're gathering that information to be able to then inform the rest of your whole customer journey mapping in terms of what you can do and how you can improve things in your whole business, not just through your chat system.
I do just want to point out when you said that a chatbot can't answer all your questions. I've worked with staff that can't actually ask all the questions either. So let's just put them all on an equal playing field.
Yeah, we because lots of people say to me, oh, they can't. So a really good example, like top chatbots will answer 75 to 90% of questions that come through. They're like amazing, top performing chatbots. One of the best ones that we've seen in function would be Oscar on Air New Zealand's website.
Yep.
He performs brilliant, but he's got 5 full-time developers behind the scenes running him full-time. So like, and training him and teaching him, like that's just not sustainable for small businesses. And so and he gets, I think he's up to like 75-80% of his questions. To be fair, they have a lot of questions come through with Air New Zealand, I imagine. But you just got to make sure that whenever you set one up, that it's just set up to succeed for the majority of those questions that you need answered.
Totally. I imagine that a lot of people are fielding questions, especially in accommodation. Are you a double vax mandated property? What time is your reception open? Lots of those little common questions.
Yep. The opening times, cancellation policies, and COVID questions are very, very common at the moment. So we've just built
for anyone that's watching this, whether you're watching it live or on the replay, would that not save you some time if you could just avoid those annoying little questions, right? I think it definitely would for me. Now, let's move on to the next question.
Oh, sorry. Yep.
Let's go on to the next one, because I think this kind of starts to move us into, not all chatbots are about the same, right? But how do we figure out which one is right for your business? And is, where do we start here?
Okay. So I'm just going to do a very quick and it's high level breakdown on the difference in the types of chatbots, or I'm just going to look at 2 different types, and then and just sort of get you to think, because I can't advise you guys on what kind of chatbot it is, but get you to think about what it is that you want your chatbot to achieve, and then how these 2 ones may do it slightly differently and what's the best way. So basically there's 2 types of different chatbots, or how they're built. There's the AI chatbot, which basically is you can ask it any question and then it will go through and find an answer to your question if it's got the data in there and it's been trained to answer that question, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Whereas this is really high level. Whereas there's logic-driven chatbots, And logic-driven chatbots, they're probably the ones that are a little bit older, but there's still some really amazing ones out there now. And what they do is it's like a tree, a decision tree. And it's sort of like it will take you deliberately on a journey to say, okay, do you want to talk to this or this? And then you push one button and then it will take you to the next level. So it's very much a set path. And if you want to deviate off the set path, you can't do that. It will take you in a loop back round.
Right.
So they're the ones that some people get frustrated with because they can keep people in sort of the same sort of questioning.
I feel like we can compare it to the logic version is like when we used to have a Commodore 64, for those old enough to know that, versus an Apple Mac computer.
Yeah, I really like the analogy of when you ring a phone call center and it's like push 1 for reception, 2 for HR, 3 for operations, and that's sort of the logic driven sort of chatbots versus the AI ones, which anyone you could throw in any question and it would sort of try and give you the answer.
So I'm going to throw one more in there. So if we're thinking about websites and people will go onto a website and they go, look, I've just got a question. I'll go into that little box. There's, it could be a face, it could be a little pop-up, it could be anything. There's also ones that are actually manned by external people as well.
Yes.
That's probably a third option.
So, so they're actually real human people, real people at the other end, but they're not your business that are manning them. Yep.
So when we look at those three types, so I'm going to say, the AI, the logic, and let's call human. Really, what's really difference in price? Like when people are looking at these things, so if they've gone down the path of actual human, they're paying for someone to be employed versus digital, which is software and it has a cost associated to it. Do they all kind of come out in the wash? Are they similar prices from what you know? And I know this is a tricky one. I'm putting you on the spot, but I imagine your competitors, so you'd probably be able to give us some idea.
So you can find logic-driven ones can be cheaper than AI-driven ones, generally. Human ones are usually, they can get about the same par as logic-driven ones. And then AI ones, are usually sit in that tier above, but depending on which system you use, not necessarily that much difference. Yeah. But when you then go into it, and that's what I always say, like, yes, people are amazing to answer those questions, but when it's externally driven by an external company, there's always the concern about, so if there's staff turnover, then who needs to then retrain your staff to then learn, and who's best to know your business, you or an external person like that? And we've seen people, because we know companies have come to us and sort of said, look, this is what we used to do. But they've realised that the knowledge and their IP about their business is actually lost to a third-party company, whereas they can hold it themselves and actually train something up to be long-term, a lot more sustainable.
Yeah.
So that's sort of where we've sort of seen the shift in terms of people recognising that being digital is also owning your digital assets as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hey, look, on that note, we have had conversations previously with other people where even just websites, people aren't owning their own websites and they've paid the money to get them, but they don't actually own the website itself.
You can't do edits and things like that. And it's just in this day and age where there's so many good, awesome software out there where you can do it yourself, like, or be able to go in. It's just,
Now, I'm a little bit biased because I love the idea of technology helping a business. And I think, it's really important for people to understand that this type of technology makes you look like you've got a team.
Mm-hmm. It can make you look
when
like
you've got no one.
Yep. Yeah.
And, and it's about weighing up the cost and the return on investment to your business to whether or not it's the right fit for you as well. But we are well aware that messaging information, sections in websites are more used than, say, an email or a phone call, even though they're still there. And, we know that people will still pick up the phone, but that's that barrier. They've had to go through a process to actually pick up the phone, where if it's there, it pops up and they're comfortable with using it, then they can go straight in and actually use it. And you've got that connection and that engagement with that customer straight away.
Yep. And if you think about it, it goes back to that customer expectation. Like when we talk to our friends and family now, we tend to message them and not ring them up and call them. So we're using messenger apps a lot ourselves and just in general in society. And so it's sort of becoming, it's much more mainstream now in terms of you can jump on and have a chat to someone versus ringing the phone. Saying that, a lot of people, and some people use the chatbot to find the phone number to give them a ring. Which is fine, but again, it's about that searching the website. So if you've got a website with a lot of content on there or a lot of words on there, people just don't. This day and age, people are impatient, and so they just don't want to read it. So I don't know how many operators I've talked to that have had a bit of a laugh with me because they're like, "Oh, this idiot asked me this question, and the answer's on the page that he's asked me the question," and I'm like, "We know that." They just can't be bothered reading the information in front of them. So
that's a really good point there. Now, quite often, when COVID hit and everyone was looking at their websites, they're updating their websites with all the information that any customer could actually ask them, and it just drowns out the important stuff, like the experience that you want to be representing, because you've put so much in there because you want to make sure that idiot has the answer that they need, but they're not going to look for it, are they? There's just too much there.
There's just, often it's because, and chat's a really good way of actually picking up those pages where there is too much chatter or too much content, because if you're getting asked the same question or a lot of questions on this one particular page, then that's a real good, like, sort of red flag straight away to say, what the hell's happening on this page that's making people or forcing people to use the chat to find the information that we know is on the page. But often it's just hidden. And so it's just not,
I just want to say, I do wish that when I go to do any exams that I can have a chatbot to give me those answers, because I don't want to find the information.
Wouldn't that be nice? I often go on.
Okay, so
yeah.
So let's have a look at the last question. So, set goals for your chatbot, identify what success will look like for your business. So this is a good one, because I think people kind of go, well, how does it all work, and what am I going to get out of this?
Yeah, and we talked to lots of people. I talked to lots of people that have been like, okay, so I need this on my website. And I'm like, okay, but why? Like, what is your purpose of actually putting it on there? And so there's lots of different purposes, and I think I've touched on them, but it's some of them, people want to boost their sales or boost their bookings, or people buying things through their website. So that's one reason why they do. But another one that is getting more and more is reducing, or saving staff time, or trying to take pressure off customer service teams. And so for a lot of businesses, that's a really hard one to measure, because at the moment they tend not to measure how much time they're taking up answering customer service questions.
Yeah.
And so when they do install a chatbot, they don't actually know what to compare it with, because they don't have any comparison data. But we track how long people can and how much time saved, but they didn't actually measure it beforehand. So it's about, making sure that if you have that goal of saving time, giving awesome customer service, that you've actually, how are you going to measure it? Or what is your sort of goal to achieve that? And then another one is just gathering leads. So a chatbot doesn't always have to convert, and it might not answer questions, but it might gather those leads for you, so that your sales team actually has an idea of what the person's after or asking about, and then B, you've got that contact details to follow up, and you can actually give a much faster reply. So if you imagine all those emails that fly back and forth with, hey, I'm looking at this, can you tell me the shoe size? And then it goes back and forth and back and forth. Well, if you can gather all that information via a conversation in your chatbot and then reply with all that information in one place, you've saved yourself at least 5 to 10 minutes of your time straight away. Yeah. And a lot of to and froing.
Yeah, and I remember when in my past life, when we were working in travel wholesale, one of the types of bookings that took so long to convert was a direct lead, and it would just go backwards and forth, and that could take days. And it could just take days, because you'd get an email, you're busy, you can't respond straight away, so you respond to it tonight, and then the customer sees it tonight, and then they respond. It's almost like that we can't do that anymore. If we want to be a responsible business owner, we have to actually act really quickly. And as you said before, if that person's not available, they're going to go down to the next person on the list. They're going to go look at another experience or another service or another product because they only have a window themselves. Now, that window could be at 12 o'clock at night.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. Yeah. So it's how you can sell yourself the best or put your best foot forward any hour of the day, no matter if you're busy or not busy, and be there for your customers, basically.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, so if we're thinking about doing it, but we're not sure, how do we train the chatbot? How does that work?
So to train an AI chatbot, you just
Can we
need
do a bit of this?
Yeah. Wouldn't it be nice if that was all it was? It's a bit more like this when you massage your head.
Okay.
So it all comes down to data in terms of chatbots and how AI chatbots and how good they can be. You just need to give them the data to be able to train them, and it's about knowing your customers. So you can do a lot of pre-training before you even go live with one if you know what your customers are going to ask you, and then be able to train it to what you already know they use and the words that they use. So like if you think about it, there's so many ways, and we specialize very much in tourism chatbots because of the hundreds and hundreds of ways that people can ask how to book or make a booking. It's just amazing. So you just, until you see all those nuances, you just don't really realize how many ways that people can do it. So it's about having all that data in one place to then train it well. But it depends, again, that comes down to what system and dashboard you're using in terms of how much training you have to do versus someone else can do or the machines can do behind the scenes.
Yeah. So as a word of advice, so if someone's not sure or they've heard about it and they don't want to, they're not quite convinced yet, what words of wisdom would you give them to consider actually placing a chatbot on their website?
I would say look at your website numbers and check that you have got really good traffic coming to your website to start with, because if you don't have people coming to your website, then investing in a chatbot is not going to be effective, or you're not going to see a good ROI. The second one I would say is, and a lot of people, if they're still sitting on the fence and just unsure about it, use a live chat for a little bit and see what sort of engagement rate you get and what kind of questions come through. And even if it's not answered live, what you can do is just have a really good, we call them fallback messages, but just a real good auto response set up that says, hey, we're not available at the moment, but if you'd like to leave your question, your address, we'll get back to you and answer your question. So it's about gathering that data, because in actual fact, like we sometimes, and often I end up saying that we're like a data analytics company, because the amount of data that you get through your chats is like gold when you look at your customer experience, your websites, your sales teams, your product and what you're offering. Because we've had heaps of businesses say, well, people have been asking for this, but we don't even do this. But maybe we should, because it's been asked so many times. So that sort of data is really good, and it will actually show you whether a chatbot is necessary or not.
That's really interesting, because, data is gold for us as businesses, but we don't tend to use it because we're so absorbed in just the day-to-day operations of what we do. So
totally. Yeah. And we see that a lot. So we try and we sort of break it down for businesses so that they don't have to go in and actually find it themselves. It's sitting there, very obvious. It's just a matter of using it now to actually make some differences. Yeah. We prompt them every day.
Hey, look, Letitia, we're coming to a close end, and these have been I've really enjoyed this. I love technology. I once referred to myself as a magpie because I used to always go for the nice shiny things that were new that come out. But as I'm getting a little bit older, I'm probably more like a scarecrow, but I'm not necessarily chasing them as much as I used to. I think people just need to understand that if they're serious about their business and, they've got that traffic, like you said, if they've got that traffic coming to their website, here's an opportunity to process it essentially and help work through it, because there's a percentage that will come through and it will save them time, and it could potentially help them grow their business, understand their business better.
Definitely. I just think you just have to keep thinking of it's the tip of the iceberg. If you can capture, if you're paying to drive people to your website, then you need to engage and capture as many as you can. Otherwise, what's the point in sending them there?
Right, and I think that's the best way to wrap up today. Hey, look, thank you so much. Now, for anyone that's watching this live or on the replay, please, if you've got any questions, just drop them in underneath the video, and we'll make sure that we'll get Letitia to answer them. And if it's a bit too technical, we'll connect you guys. Now, if you are interested in learning more a little bit about Yonder, head to its Facebook page. We'll make sure that we tag it after the end of this show so you can go and take a look yourself. There are lots of chatbots out there, but we happen to choose one to talk today. So Letitia, thank you very much for sharing your knowledge, and no doubt we'll probably see you again in the future. But to everyone else, if you like what we do, like, share, comment, share with a friend. And if you do want to subscribe to our newsletter, I'll make sure the link is in the comments for you to join. All right. Well, everyone, have a safe week, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, Letitia.
See ya. Thank you. Thanks for having us.